we committed to becoming the first carbon-neutral continent by 2050. And just last month, we agreed to a decisive step by promising to reduce our carbon emissions by 55% by 2030. And with our Green Deal, we operationalize these targets and harness the vast economic potential of green innovations. We want to become the green world leader. Our digital strategy is just as ambitious. We want to spearhead the digital revolution, that of data, cloud computing and artificial intelligence. We possess the largest pool of industrial data in the world. Our European model, based on values and individual freedoms, can give us a competitive advantage over the other models in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not enough to simply have goals. Goals without the means are just wishful thinking. And that's why we have taken decisive action to deploy massive financial means to achieve our goals. We agreed and confirmed a huge 1.8 trillion euro budget and recovery plan financed by issuing European bonds. It will turbocharge our climate and digital transitions. Finally, the European Union wants to grow stronger as a collective whole, not just the sum of individual countries. Stronger to better defend our values and interests in the world, and this means building greater strategic autonomy, less dependence, more influence. It means defending multilateral cooperation for a more open and fairer world, and leaving behind a certain naivety. It means 27 countries unified behind a set of clear objectives. Two very recent examples come to mind: our Brexit agreement with the UK and our investment agreement with China. On Brexit, we stood firm and unified. Right from the beginning, access to our single market of 450 million consumers is only possible by respecting our standards and the rules of the game. On China, we are determined to rebalance our trade relationship and to achieve greater reciprocity. When ratified, our investment agreement will finally give our businesses access to markets previously closed to them. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to lead on climate and digital, and we want more strategic autonomy in an open and global environment. So, how is our European space action, your action, playing a key role in helping to achieve these goals? First, our space policy, along with a strong and dynamic space sector, is essential to implementing our climate and digital strategies. Copernicus is already a spectacular tool for monitoring and watching over our planet, offering the most accurate data of planet Earth 24/7. And in the digital domain, space communications are creating major new opportunities. Low Earth orbit satellite projects, in particular, should allow us to develop broadband connectivity throughout Europe, a key to the success of our digital transition. Second, in our new budgetary space program, we will spend 14.9 billion euro, a significant increase from our previous budget. This will help step up support for a space industrial base that's already highly competitive on private markets with great potential for growth. From data to the Internet of Things, broadband, Earth observation, and of course, launch systems. We are determined to do everything we can to support and facilitate access to financing in these fields, particularly for startups and SMEs. This is true for the space sector and for the digital sector, which will boost the space economy. Finally, space has a direct impact on our geopolitical goal of strategic autonomy. Europe is already a major player in space, and if we want to be stronger and more self-confident on the global landscape, we must also be stronger in space. We must ensure safe, autonomous, reliable, and affordable access to space. Of course, we are not alone. As competition in space increases, we need to use our weight as a global player to help build robust global governance. This will be essential to innovative and sustainable space activity. And how we manage space traffic and space debris will also be a challenge. Europe, as a leader in multilateral cooperation, has a key role to play in protecting the collective global interest. Space also offers commercial challenges. Fair access to world markets will also be a global challenge, and we must play a positive role in this area as well. Ladies and gentlemen, a robust European space sector is essential to a robust Europe. Developing our space sector will help us reinforce our strategic autonomy, goal number one of our generation, in my view. This encompasses all our operational objectives. Your field space is set to grow at a phenomenal rate, and this will have an equally phenomenal impact on our strategic objective of greater autonomy. In the same way, Europe's strength and assertiveness on the global stage will help us create a favorable context for your energies, talents, and innovations in the space sector. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Union was born of a dream. Today, that dream is a reality that must be constantly nurtured and strengthened with determination and unity. We have proved this over the past year. And this dream must continue to push us towards greater ambition. Your field, the conquest of space, evolves our dreams like no other. You are at the forefront of Europe's future, the new European dream. You can count on Europe to support you, just as Europe counts on you. I wish you a productive and exciting conference. Thank you.
Good morning, Joël, and good morning, everyone, and Thierry Breton in particular. I've been participating in this conference for all the last few years, but today this conference is very special. We live unprecedented times, and we need to make sure that the development of European space activities are present in the context of the recovery plan throughout every single European region through the next generation EU, particularly in close articulation and collaboration with the new European Space Programme and the launching of Horizon Europe, as well as with unique resources we have today through the European Space Agency. Space has provided unique resources for the future of Europe, and the Portuguese presidency should recognize the work done by the previous German presidency in making sure all the legislative acts are in power, so that now is time for action. And our presidency has fine lines of action. We want certainly a Europe which is more green, more digital, but also a resilient Europe under a social context and certainly open to the world. And space do provide a unique capacity for doing this, and therefore our main goal is to mobilize every single actor, institutional actors, but also the business sector throughout Europe towards an European approach of new space oriented to our citizens, new space for people. And let me very briefly say why, what, and how. Firstly, why? We are living unprecedented times also because we do require a new balance for our sustainable economic development. The last Human Development Report just published by the United Nations is clear about the scientific evidence that we live in a new geological area, the Anthropocene, where actually animal and plant extinction rates roughly 100 times faster than previously occurred. And the pandemic is also a clear result of that unbalance. So there are obvious actions. First and foremost, space systems combined with Earth observation and advanced artificial intelligence can provide certainly the awareness but also new action, from land register to autonomous mobility to biodiversity management, which can provide the leadership of Europe in moving towards the green and digital transformation. But there are also disruptive resources which we need to take in the care, because space is also a resource. And again, Europe must lead this process, particularly in the provision and use of the most rare resources in space: orbital places and bandwidth. And these are particularly important because European science, in terms of optical communications and more quantum physics, do provide our capacity for certainly a new generation in the coming years of the fusion between science and technology. And that is the reason why it's also so important in this conference we have the presence of two commissioners, Thierry Breton with industry and the internal market, and Maria Gabriel with research, innovation and youth, because space is also for our presence but also for our future generations. The potential establishment of an European autonomous infrastructure in space for communication purposes, including intersatellite link monitoring and the optimized use of bandwidth, can only be achieved with advanced optical communications and quantum physics, which should also drive our attention as a disruptive way to look at space resources. That is the reason why we certainly need to combine the way to advance in on-time space applications for Earth observations, certainly making use of our capacity on space navigation, but also looking at space traffic management together with the development of an advanced 5G and communications ecosystems. And this means a European approach to new space oriented towards our people, which can only be done if we mobilize national, public and private, national and European, certainly bringing together national space agencies, our industry and our unique resources within the European Space Agency and installed capacity. Certainly in the downstream markets, articulating space and non-space, where the new agency, the SPA, will be particularly critical in guaranteeing throughout Europe the development of downstream applications which create jobs. And space is also the creation of new and better jobs for future generations. In the access to space, it is clear that we need certainly strengthen the existing capacity to access space, but also diversifying and complementing it with small spaceports and flexible launchers which will open up entrepreneurial activities throughout every single European zone, either in Azores or in Kiruna or in Andoya or in Scotland. We need to make sure that we complement the existing facilities in Kourou to better access to space and also create markets. Certainly we understand that space creates jobs, space can also create markets, particularly in the downstream side, but also in the new and disruptive sectors of space communications through the existing capacity in optical communications and quantum physics. So certainly looking at space from a people and the citizens' approach is essentially the way we consider to mobilize every single actor through a joint venture in a way that we can definitely make sure of the leadership of Europe in the coming years in the new space approach for people. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for both of you. And first of all, dear President of the European Council, mon cher Charles, dear ministers and representatives of member states, dear Sophie Wilmers, honourable members of the European Parliament, dear friends from the space sector, et encore une fois, mon cher Manuel. I am, yes, extremely happy, let me tell you the truth, to be with you today, to participate, even if it's the way we have to be, unfortunately, to get used to it, to this conference. 2020 has been an extraordinary, turbulent year with, of course, we all know that, unfortunately, it's not over, the worst worldwide health crisis. We had to adapt ourselves to this new reality, and of course our personal life, and the crisis hit a lot of sectors, almost every sector, including, of course, the aerospace industry. But Europe, and this is my strong belief, has shown that it can take the necessary decisions to ensure our collective resilience. Solidarity was a key word. 2021 will be the year of trust. Trust in our ability to emerge stronger from this crisis. Trust to act on lessons learned, and trust in order to put forward a new vision. In this spirit, I would like today to explain how we see the future of course, our space policy, 1 year, of course, as you mentioned, having been in office. And I should say that we made, yes, last year, despite everything I mentioned, extremely important progresses for the future of our Europe space policy. First, of course, it has been mentioned, but I would like to reiterate because it was not be easy. It has not been done for granted. We have been able to secure an important budget. Charles Michel, of course, reminded all of us that it is almost 15 billion euro, and this is the largest budget ever at EU level for space. It comes, by the way, also in complement to the investment that will be done in ESA and, of course, by member states. Second, we have agreed on the new EU space programme, the first of its kind for Europe. This will give us the capacity to act on the European space policy in all its dimensions. Implementation modalities are still under discussion, but, and it was extremely important, you remember I said this to you last year, it was extremely important for me to put this forward. And yes, I am confident that we will be able to conclude in the coming weeks to put in place the right governance structures to ensure continuity in the programmes, while of course securing modern, agile and efficient governance. But let me be crystal clear on one point. The European space policy will continue to rely on ESA and its unique technical engineering and science expertise. ESA will continue to be the European agency for space matters. So, if we are to be successful in our European strategy for space, and we will be, I will need ESA by my side. I take this opportunity, by the way, to thank Jan Wormer for the work he does for Europe and space, and I am also looking forward to start working with Joseph Aschbacher in a spirit of trust and joint ambition for Europe and space. My strategy for space in the years to come relies in 4 dimensions. First, on consolidating Galileo and Copernicus. As Europe, we had the foresight 20 years ago to put in place Galileo and then, later on, Copernicus. Of course, there were major decisions driven by a sense of leadership in space, but also a political willingness to ensure autonomous satellites positioning and Earth observation. Today, Galileo and Copernicus are definitely established infrastructures, the best in the world and recognized as such, and also instrumental to our green and digital transition. However, it is not time to be complacent and to congratulate ourselves on our achievements. We need to think ahead for the next 10 to 20 years. Galileo and Copernicus must evolve. Otherwise, they will fast become obsolete. And this is why I decided to front-load the launch of the second generation of Galileo satellites, with a first launch in 2024. There was no time to lose on past technologies, as we needed to project Europe into the next technological race. This is the new reality of space business. In Europe, we must learn to take more risk, to anticipate them, of course, carefully, to mitigate them, but to move fast. And I am glad that the industry understood this message, took up the challenge, and put forward high-quality proposals, following and based on the careful technical evaluation. The decision has been taken, and it will be announced by the end of this month. With this new generation, Galileo will operate real technological breakthrough with high innovative satellites and technological such as digitally configurable antennas, inter-satellite links, new atomic clocks, use of full electric propulsion systems. The second generation of Galileo will have significantly improved services capabilities, notably in the field of secure navigation and resilience against emerging threats. When it comes to Copernicus, we are today designing new missions, as you know. ESA has awarded 6 new precursor missions, which all have huge potential for all of us in Europe. For instance, the CO2 monitoring missions or the polar observation mission. The budgetary, of course, realities will, however, put some constraints, that's life, on our ability to pursue in a development phase all these missions at the same time. It is, of course, too early to decide, but we will have to look at it carefully on the basis of the readiness and performance of the precursing phase, the relevance for the general interest, as well as the programmatic direction we want to give to Copernicus. Besides these new missions, Copernicus will need to adapt to the new competition, of course, which is fierce in the dynamic field of Earth observation. We cannot proceed, of course, with business as usual here also. This is true for the satellites we launch, for the data we produce, and the services we provide. This will be, of course, one of my priorities for the year to come. Second, besides consolidating the existing, we need also to anticipate the future challenges and potential strategic dependencies over the next 20 to 30 years. The power to connect will be essential also in 2050. I consider that Europe needs to develop rapidly a space-based connectivity initiative as a third infrastructure beside Galileo and Copernicus. With this infrastructure, we want to achieve 4 goals. First, put an end to dead zones, giving access to high-speed broadband to everyone, everywhere on our continent. Second, to become autonomous and avoid, we have listened carefully what Charles Michel said, dependencies on the non-EU initiative under development, like we did with Galileo. Third, and for the one who know me, it's extremely important, everything is important, but we need also to project Europe into the quantum era, ensuring quantum encrypted communication, but even more than that. And fourth, we need to keep the continent connected whatever happens. Here also, we have listened carefully what Charles Michel said, including massive attack on the internet, which are no fiction anymore. We all know that, especially with the emergence, again, of the quantum and post-quantum capacities. And everybody knows what we have in mind here. My objective, therefore, is, of course, it's not a surprise to you, to go fast. And therefore, it will be appropriate that the Commission put forward this year, a proposal to the European Parliament and also to the Council so that we can move concretely. To be ready, we launched a few weeks ago already a study on secure space-based connectivity system. The selected consortium consisting of European satellites manufacturers, operators and service providers, telco operators and launch services providers, and of course they will study the possible design and development of this project. This will provide insights on the technical dimension, but also the governance structure, the financing, the missions, in other words, in a nutshell, the exact scope. I expect, by the way, their first feedback as early as in April this year. My message, of course, is clear. This is not a business as usual space project. It's broader. It will have to rely on the industry from different sectors. We need definitely to think outside of the box, including in terms of financing, where we will have to mobilize all possible sources. Of course, EU budget, and we'll be ready to do this, member states, and we have already a lot of interest, ESA, and of course the private sectors. Technically, I would like that this project is designed as a multi-orbital initiative, combining LEO infrastructures with others, including, of course, GEO. It will complement our existing infrastructure, creating synergies. For instance, it will enhance the Galileo signal, making it able to withstand various potential interferences, provide to Copernicus data really capacity for real-time missions, or host extra payload space-based sensors to perform space surveillance and tracking directly from space. Third, I wish to promote our strategic autonomy and the imperative need we have to act upon our existing and future strategic dependencies. Enhancing Europe's strategic autonomy in space is not an option. This is not about closing the door to our partners, of course. It is just about developing and maintaining our infrastructures, technologies, skills, competencies, and reducing critical dependencies on third countries so we can rely on our own if necessary. And the first element, of course, is launchers. There is no space policy without autonomous access to space. Now that the space program is adopted, we are ready to aggregate our institutional demand, Galileo, Copernicus, future secure connectivity, IOD, IOV, over the whole 7-year period, which is what we need. For the first time, we will also be able to use the EU budget to support the European launcher industry in full chain, from earliest research on new propulsion technologies to long-term contract for the launches of our EU satellites. But considering the global market and the offensive positioning of our competitors, it is here also, let's be clear, no time for complacency. Yes, we have a fantastic EU launchers, competitive on the global stage, but the standards for launchers are currently being redefined outside of Europe. We all know that. We must ask ourselves, will our current approach successfully get us to 2050, considering the disruption in the sector that we all observe? Personally, I strongly doubt. And I believe we need a more offensive, aggressive, coherent global strategy. Europe cannot afford to be divided on this very strategic question. We need to be able to go beyond the national interest. There is therefore an urgent need to break the taboos of this debate, and I'm not naive, to sit and discuss all together and define a new setup for Europe to design a true and genuine European strategy for launchers. As the first institutional customers from far, but also being in charge of space policy at large and space industrial competitiveness especially, the Commission is ready to and will play its role. In that perspective, and in the same way we did successfully with Gaia-X, for example, for the cloud or industrial cloud, we need to go beyond the cooperation, which was very important, between a limited number of countries, albeit absolutely necessary again, for specific technologies, as the one I mentioned, and then Europeanize this reflection. I will therefore gather in the next months all the actors to initiate a European Launcher Alliance, so to be able to jointly define with ESA, the Member States, the European Parliament, the industry, a common roadmap for the next generation of launchers and technologies relevant to ensure an autonomous access to space. The other element of Europe's strategic autonomy is how we operate in space thanks to a space traffic management system. Of course, that's another subject, but very important. Because, of course, we all know that we have now an increasingly congested space, which is threatening the viability and security of space infrastructure and operations. 1 million debris are orbiting around Earth, and it is constantly increasing. We all know that. It is expected, by the way, that in the next years to come, more than 30,000 additional satellites will be launched. And this is why we have already the space surveillance and tracking framework in place. But we need to go further by developing a robust, very robust EU space surveillance tracking policy and related capabilities, starting actively as early as in 2021. This is a necessary step to become a credible partner in a balanced cooperation framework with the US yet to be established. It is indeed paramount that we do not end up with a situation where all technological standards for operation in space are set beyond our inputs or control. As the last element of the space strategy for 2021, which is also extremely important, I wish to position Europe as the hub of space entrepreneurship in the world. We have in Europe the creativity, the startups, the entrepreneurs, the research centers and the innovation capacity. But we do not have a coherent approach, rather scattered and inefficient one, let's be honest. We are duplicating efforts by not being coordinated. We are wasting resources by not being organized. We are often missing disruptive technologies by not just working together. Yet the space sector is going through a fast, as we said, and profound industrialization process of the same magnitude than the one of the automotive industry went through years ago. Doing space has become cheaper. This is good news, but it also calls on all of us to adapt, public authorities as well as industries. I see the future of the European space industry as a combination of strong institutional leadership and European approach to the new space, one that is not a mere copy-paste of the US. Now is the time to seek alternative business model and funding schemes. I will therefore launch this year a new space entrepreneurship initiative called Cassini. Cassini will put in place, together with EIB, IF, a 1 billion European space fund to boost startups and space innovation. It will cover actions on the whole innovation cycle, from business ideas to industrialization, building on the 100 million space equity pilot we launched last year. With Cassini, we want to stimulate more VC funds to invest actively in space companies in Europe, but also to make sure that other industries invest into space technologies and solutions. We want also to organize a true European space incubator, relying on the strengths of all actors, putting them into a coherent integrated network. I am also determined to enable the EU to act as a major anchor customer of first client, first contract approach, where appropriate for large and small projects. Finally, I intend to put forward a large-scale European in-orbit technology validation program, joining forces with ESA here again, so to provide regular access to space to the most promising in Europe and a driver to the necessary change of mindset. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, 2021 will be a defining year for our space strategy and for the position of Europe on the global space stage. We have enormous challenges to face, with, of course, a serious risk of losing ground. We need to be able to find the resources to reinvent ourselves, to break the taboos, and to establish cooperation. Yes, what I call for is a rather fundamental overhaul of the way we do space in Europe. Of course, we will continue on developing our strengths and past successes, definitely. But as I said, we need to invent new ones. And for this, I wish to work, of course, closely with all of you, member states, Parliament, industry, and of course with ESA, who will have a central role in this endeavour. I will need everybody. I will need each of you. We will need each of us. Let's build on what we have, make it future-proof, and think together strategically for our European continent. Thank you.